Hello everybody, welcome to this playthrough for Rookie Division for the Tranquil Gardens 18-hole cup. We're gonna play Sakura Hills and the Namhae Cliffs. In this playthrough, you will see me talk you through all the holes here, giving you my best advice on how to crush this 18-hole cup. If you do enjoy the content here on the channel, do not forget to hit the thumbs up button, also subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification. For those of you that are looking to improve your game even more, check out the starter pack that we do have on patreon.com/golfclashtommy. That will give you access to all the general text guides that we're doing for every hole in the game by giving a logging access then on our website. So you get like behind the scenes and stuff like that. So check that out. That's a perfect way for you to start learning how to use guides. Info box on the right hand side for the club distance adjustment, elevation adjustment, also what ball and club type I suggest you to play with. Now, let's go to hole number 1. The Cliff Shootout, as it's called, and this is honestly one of the tougher par 3s from any tee to drop consistently, and that is because it's a very bumpy fairway that we're bouncing on, and we are landing on a very bumpy green. So getting this hole in one consistently is something that we are going to have to forget, regardless of what tee box we are playing from and what club and what ball we're having. But what we can do at least is that we can do our best, obviously. So the idea here is to get the ball to go at the top of the green to fall down towards the pin. This will leave us room from not having to bounce very close to the water, because you will notice when you play against your opponents that if they don't really know how to attack this hole, they will fall down into the water and lose a shot. I'm using a quasar ball or a navigator depending on what wind direction I'm going to have, but I'm keeping myself with the power 1 ball, using the sniper as it does have a good ball guideline and a good accuracy. 20% elevation, medium distance here for hole number 8. For hole number 1, we're going to go for green and we're going to bounce on the fairway pad. I'm using 1 topspin and 2 right spin with my Titan ball and extra mile. Here, if you have the possibility to play with a ball with more power, that's going to be more helpful, because playing with more power will allow you to not have to go with a shaky needle when going with overpower, because you're then going to be able to push up more, and then you can remove either the overpower completely or just use a little amount. I'm using approximately 3 rings of overpower. I adjust max plus 10, and I'm aiming for the front part of the pad, because that part of the pad is way more consistent when it comes to the first bounce compared to bouncing further back. Now getting a close one, it zooms in, sure comes in a little bit hot, but the hole in one is definitely there if you are a little bit lucky. For hole number 6, we should just pray to not get headwind. And unfortunately, we do have headwind here in the video. But I wanted to display that even if you do have headwind, there is a way of bouncing on the fairway pad over the water. But it's still going to be risky. So I wouldn't really recommend to do this type of play if you don't have the possibility to play with a power 3 ball minimum. If you do have a tailwind here, you can even play with a power 1 ball. You will still have the wind help the ball be carried over the water and land nicely on the fairway. So the ultimate outcome here is that we bounce on the fairway on the island and then get the ball to be closer towards the green. That will leave a wedge, or it will leave a short iron close to minimum distance. I'm using the big topper to give myself the most topspin possible, because we do want to use a lot of topspin to make sure that we do carry over the water. Second shot, I want to play with a short iron here. So if I would be clipping rough like I did on my drive, then I would make sure to use a little bit of topspin instead, to make sure that I can play with my short iron instead of my long iron. Here, if you do have a bad ball guideline, which is what I'm having here, then I would strongly advise you to back up and make sure that you do have room for the rollout. Because the worst thing you can do here is to come in too hot, and that's obviously never going to drop. 20% elevation, true club distance. So if you are at max distance, which we are now in the video, then we're going to use max distance. But the most likely outcome if you don't clip the rough is that you are somewhere between minimum and medium distance of your club. Bounces on the fairway and it gets down towards the green, and this time we drop it for a lovely albatross here on hole number 6. Number 1 of the Sakura Hills, we are going to play ourselves up towards a short iron. Here I'm playing with the quarterback, and the reason I'm playing with the quarterback is to allow myself a good accuracy whilst I'm pushing this ball to get as close to the green possible. Also, the curl with quarterback is actually fairly decent even in the lower levels, and that is to compare to the other drivers such as lower level extra miles and Thor's hammers and stuff like that. All the curl that I can after the adjustment max plus a 10, and all the side spin that I can as well, because the closer we are to the right hand side of the fairway, the closer we are towards the pin. Second of all, we are going to do a short iron towards the pin. Now check where minimum distance are, where maximum distance are. I would recommend to try to have the first bounce on the green. Ball guideline needs to be short, as we do not have a fully developed ball guideline with our thorn, and that is something we truly need to have in mind. 10% elevation through club distance means that you again check where min club is, where max club is, and then you make an educated guess what type of club distance you play from. And obviously if you do have any frame checks or a pin check or something like that to follow, that's going to be better. But if you have nothing, that's the way to attack the pin. Now, ball guideline was slightly short of pin, almost too short, and we're getting ourselves the eagle here on hole 1. Sakura Hills, hole number 2 from the front tee, and this is we're gonna start with the white ring by the bunker to the left and by the bunker to the right. So we're boxing in our backbone, and from there we're applying spins, half a bar right spin and 1.8 backspin. Now the backspin and the side spin will vary depending on what wind angle you have off tee, but for this type of wind angle the spins works really well. Adjust is going to be max plus a 20. And once we have adjusted, we are going to center the ball and hit perfect. You don't have to play with a navigator if you don't want to, but I do believe that the navigator is a perfect ball to use on a par 3 like this, where we can reduce the wind a little bit and get some help with the wind push. Ball comes down and it rolls just right of the cup, being very close for the hole in 1, but in the end a very safe way getting a birdie. Hole number 3, here we are dependent on having a lot of topspin if we are going to get ourselves down the second fairway without being dependent on having a big boy club, or not maybe a big boy club, but at least a fairly upgraded extra mile. All the topspin by just max plus 10. And the intention here now is to do a double bounce. So we're going to bounce one time on the fairway, and then the second time on the fairway over the rough and the sand, and now giving us an open shot towards the pin from distance. This is a tricky par 5, especially in headwind. In tailwind, I do recommend that you use a driver with more distance, because then you can do a single bounce over the rough and the sand. But most importantly, it's important to know that if we are having to lay up before the rough and the sand with our drive, that's going to give us a very, very difficult chance to get a drop from distance. Now on the second shot is all about finding a spot on the fairway that is consistent, because this looks very flat, but it's not flat, it's very bumpy, and that's something we obviously want to counteract by finding a good and flat bounce. Second bounce, I want to be on the green if possible, because the more we can avoid having stuff to happen on the fairway before the green, the better it's going to be. Now, a great left It's not supposed to drop right at pin if we do have the proper adjustment, but sometimes we are lucky. 10% elevation on the approach. On hole number 5 here, I would strongly recommend to play with a ball that has as much power as possible. Berserker ball is the one for me because I know I would be having a good chance getting at least one back from the upcoming golden shot. So I'm using 4.5 bar topspin and putting my target at the center of the fairway, maximum distance plus 10, and then I will apply max overpower with, I mean, it's a shaky needle, but you can hit great left and great right and still be up by the green. For those of you that do have a possibility to play with more topspin, 6 bars of topspin, maybe 7 bars of topspin, use all the topspin and reduce the overpower slightly, then it will be easier to hit perfect, but you will also see yourself getting onto the green. I'm gonna show the wedge even though it's a very short one. I would recommend to pack a wedge that has a good ball guideline, and the reason for that is that otherwise it becomes much more difficult and it becomes a lot of guesswork to aim correctly with the ball guideline. So you can see here now I'm basically just eyeballing as I don't really have a ball guideline to follow, and that's never something that is good to bring consistency with a wedge. So now, sure, I'm dropping it, but at the same time, you know, it didn't feel good. It didn't feel confident at all when not having the ball guideline. Hole number 2 is one of the few par 3s, or I would say I think this is the only par 3 where we are actually using a short iron towards the pin. And that is obviously where I'm playing from the front tee. It's a very short par 3 with a very good chance for a drop. And this is the way to play it. The green slightly slopes right to left, so you're going to have to aim on the right side of the pin. When we do have a bad ball guideline, such as we do have with the Thorn level 5, we need to make sure that we are clearly right side of the pin, because we don't really see how it turns to the left on the green. Maximum distance with a 15% over adjustment, I'm using 0.8 bars of topspin. I would be using a little backspin in tailwind, and I would be using no spin in crosswind. I'm hitting a great right, and here you can see that getting a drop here with a hole-in-one means obviously that we were aiming too far left. So again, you need to move enough to the right with your target to make sure that you can get the hole-in-one in a more consistent way, and then your then your opponent can continue laughing at you while you make that drop. Hole number 9, and this is going to be a tough par 5 to consistently drop, and the reason for that is the bumpy fairways. There is not a lot of room for faulty adjustments and stuff like that here, and that's the difficult part in my opinion. So what I would like to say here is that we start with the quarterback using all the left spin that we can, combined with 3 to 5 bars of topspin, depending on what amount you're having. The maximum topspin with the quarterback is 5 bars if you do have it in a max level. Adjustment max plus 15, and we're going to use some left curl. The goal here is to get the ball to be on the left of the second fairway. Because once we're getting there, we do have an open shot towards the fairway pad to bounce it towards the green. Now it is important to make sure to give yourself some room in terms of having the second bounce to be clearly over the rough line. If you do like I'm doing here in the video, you will never be in any risk of getting the ball into the water, even if you may make a bad adjustment, or you might underpower a little bit or overpower a little bit, then you will still be safe on the green. But if making the correct adjustment, then you will see yourself being very close dropping an albatross. 10% elevation is what I'm using here. I'm trying to use true club distance number, and here I was closer to minimum distance than medium distance, which makes sense that I did over adjust my shot by using the medium adjustment. So make sure to judge the club distance in the best way possible, use the 10% elevation, and give yourself a chance for a drop on hole number 9. For the part 3 of Sakura Hills, this is also an old classic. This is a part 3 where I remember when in the early days this was the part 3 to drop an hole in one on, because this is funneling down towards the hole in a very nice way. Top of the red ring by the rough line, I'm using a navigator here with approx 1 topspin, 10% elevation, and using medium distance here. Intention here is to bounce before the rough and the sand, letting the slope on the green take the ball to its home. Sure, you can go directly on the green, but I do not see in any value in that. It will, in my opinion, be harder to drop from distance. Now, missing just right, needed a little bit less adjustment, but we're coming in nicely, at least to stay for a simple birdie. Hole number 5 of the Sakura Hills. We are going to use the driver that gives us the most power possible when it comes to playing in headwind. If we do have a tailwind, we can come around by using a more accurate driver such as the rock or the quarterback. Now, power 2 ball is what I'm using, a katana. And I'm using overpower here to get myself to a decent distance. Sure, using a power 3 ball will allow you to use less overpower, but it could also risk going more in between clubs on the approach. 343 yards. Now, we are using the sniper on the second shot. We're gonna be somewhere between min and mid distance, ensuring to have the ball guideline to go through the hole as we have the ball to roll uphill, and it's all about finding a good spot here for our first bounce, and that's the tricky part with this rough bump. And the thing you need to have in mind here is, like, if you do not fancy the rough bump, then you will have to go directly onto the green, because you don't really have much fairway to play on before the green, and then the Guardian would, if so, be the better wood club to use, as it has more backspin and will allow you to just aim at the green and have no risk of losing out on the birdie. But the eagle is most definitely going to be super difficult to get, so the rough bump is by far the best chance in my opinion, but you should definitely have in mind the Guardian if you do feel that those type of rough bumps that did being displayed there is not something for you. For hole number 6 of the Sakura Hills from the front tee, we are starting with our extra mile, using all the topspin we can, which is 4.5 bars, and 2 right spin. We do want to play with a ball with a decent amount of power, this to be able to reach for the rough bump, which is what we want to play on the approach. Adjust max plus 10, then we are going to center the ball to hit perfect. The intention here now is to get this ball safely down the fairway without risking going into the rough on the left or right, or obviously just way up there in front. So this is a perfect way of getting the ball consistently to around the 350 yards. And from there, we're going to use our sniper. Now, I do totally understand that some of you may not be a fan of doing rough bumps, but if you're looking to drop shots like this from distance, you will increase your chances massively by going for a rough bump like this. And to be clear, even though it looks aggressive, it's not really an aggressive one, as you could adjust this one wrong with, you know, both a ring too much and a ring too little, and you will still hit the rough. Ball guideline through the hole when we do have a slight headwind. Now I do adjust a little bit too much in the end, which is why we are missing on the left hand side, but we're using 10% elevation, then trying to judge what club range we are in. Are we close to min? Are we close to max? Then make a decision what type of club range we are using to decide what to play. In the end, a very safe way of getting an eagle with a good chance for an albatross. Sakura Hills, part 3. Here we're going to play a rough bump. And the reason I want to play a rough bump is because that's, I would say, it's not the only way to drop an hole-in-one on, but I would say that's the best way. It's a skinny rough bump where we are bouncing at the edge, or like we're aiming at the edge of the rough. This to compensate for the slight headwind that we're having. And we're playing this shot in the video max +10, but that is a mistake. We should be playing this one mid +10 instead. And you can see that the difference with that is obviously that I'm going to miss left. There's no need to play with a special ball here, or like to play with any better ball than a power 0 ball. However though, playing with a lot of wind resistance will allow you to not have to pull that many rings, and will also give you then an easier time to hit the rough. So this is an aggressive way to play this shot. If you're not interested playing the aggressive way, if you rewind a little bit, you can see that I play with the Guardian, or like I started with the Guardian with all its backspin. So that's a way for you to just use all the backspin, aim for the green, and just land it there, and the backspin will give you a normal pot to secure the birdie. But the hole-in-one will not be a possibility, unfortunately, with using the Guardian there. So the rough bump if you want to go for the hole-in-one, otherwise just land it on green and move on. Hole number 9, here we're going to play on this little fairway pad there. It looks scarier than what it is. So what I'm doing is that I will in the end up with playing with half a bar of backspin and 2 right spins. So I was a little bit undecided here for a bit what I would actually going to play, because I do want to have enough distance so I can get past the tree on the left, but I don't want to have too much and roll into the rough or in the sand. Like off that you can see there in front of the fairway, or like after the fairway, sorry for my English. So I'm setting the spins, making an adjustment that is max +10, and then I will be applying some overpower here, which is going to be approximately 2 rings. You can see that the needle is super slow, which you get when you which you are getting when you're not at max line. Then you get a much slower needle, and it rolls lovely, and we're getting ourselves a short wedge to pin. So the second shot here, we're playing with the wedge that gives us the best ball guideline. For those that have been watching the complete playthrough, would have hear me say on hole 5 and hole 6, where we play wedges, how important it is to play with a wedge that you have a good ball guideline. So me playing with a skewer here is not really the best decision I've done in my life. In the end, I ending up dropping it, but choose the wedge that gives you the best possible ball guideline, and because that will help you immensely in trying to get yourself a safe and smooth way of locking in the eagle. You don't have to play with a kingmaker if you don't want to, because it's not really needed. The 3 right spin is not really needed, the wind resistance, but obviously the P3 is going to be super helpful, as otherwise it's very easy to fall short on drive. Hole number 4. This is going to be a par 3 with a lot of bumps. There is a rough bump just to the right of the bunker on the left, but when we're playing with such a low accuracy clubs, and also with bad ball guideline, that rough bump will just that's going to be generally crap. So I wouldn't recommend to go for the rough bump here from front tee. I would recommend to do a regular backspin bounce over by using around 2 to 3 bars of backspin, depending on what wind direction we have of tee, and use medium distance +20. I'm playing with a Marlin ball here to reduce the wind just slightly, but at the same time keep it very cheap. We bounce on the fairway over towards the green, and we're just burning the edge. Needed a little bit more adjustment, or we needed to move our target a little bit more to the side than what we have there. And that's obviously the difficult part with long irons and short irons with a bad ball guideline. We don't really know if we're aiming directly at pin or not. Hole number 9 of the Sakura Hills. This is a very long and difficult par 5, especially if you do not have a good ball and a good club. And what I mean with good club is that you have a club with a lot of topspin or a lot of power or both. I'm using the big topper here to just kind of put the point on that we want to have a lot of topspin if possible. All the topspin, and I'm just blasting down the fairway. We have a very open fairway, which is positive in the sense of that we can hit great on either side, and we don't have to risk the rough max plus 10 on the drive. Second shot, our intention here only is to get the ball to green. You can see that the pin stands far right, meaning that the only way to actually attack the pin from distance for an albatross is either to go up the bank on the green and roll down towards the hole, or to go for some sort of a blind sand or rough bump. And here from the front tee, it's gonna be more or less impossible if you're not having, like I said again, you have a high level club with a good power and topspin on the drive, so you can get yourself up to that distance. From here, I'm just playing it safe and getting myself to the green and having a putt for the eagle. There will be loads of players that are getting a birdie here instead of the eagle. Especially it's going to be more birdies than what it's going to be albatross. Like, it's going to be a massive difference for that. So getting an eagle here is nothing wrong at all, and that will put you in an advantage over a lot of your opponents. For Sakura Hills, hole number 8, we're going to play with our quarterback, and we're going to make sure that we have the thorn packed as well, because the second shot's gonna be a shot needed a lot of backspin, and therefore packing the correct clubs is going to be super important. Max plus 10 is the adjustment on the drive, max side spin, and we're using a little bit of top spin as well. Curl to the right with a slight amount of overpower. Again, we're trying to push this ball to the right a decent bunch without rolling into the rough. Now you can see that we are getting very close to roll into the rough, which is not what we want. So we should have taken down the curl and a bit, because there is no reason to push it that hard that a great ball should be risking going into the rough. Now I'm using the thorn to have my first bounce on the green. I'm either going to do a dunk or I'm going to do a max backspin shot. It's all down to what you believe would work the best for you. If you're going for the dunk, as I'm doing here in the video, aim with the blue arrows at the back of the cup. Make sure to not use all the backspin here. The reason for that is if you hit the pin, using max backspin will make you fall down into the bunker always. So therefore I'm using a very little amount of backspin, so when I do hit the pin, I'm not going to fall down into the sand. A perfect adjusted dunk will give you a good chance for an eagle from distance. Otherwise, you're going to miss and you're gonna sit yourself for a birdie putt. But the backspin shot can also be played by aiming to have the tip of the ball guideline to be past the pin, then for the ball to roll back into the hole. It's up to you what way you want to play here on Sakura Hills, hole number 8. For hole number 3, we're gonna play one of the tougher par 5s there is in the game, in my opinion, and that's because even if we do the drive correct, it's still going to be a difficult second shot to get to the green area. And this is a par 5 where we are not playing for the albatross, we're playing for a safe eagle, and the way we do it is to try to get this ball to be as far up the fairway on the right possible. Do left spin and a little bit of backspin here, and where adjustment is max plus 15, and we're using outside wall left curl. The adjustment and the spins will vary depending on what wind direction you have off tee, but the end result is something we would like to be the same. Now you can see that I'm sitting there on that slight uphill slope. I want to be a little bit longer up, because what's going to happen now is that we are so dependent on tailwind if we're going to reach to the other side. And now we do have tailwind for the sake of the example, and then you can decide to do two things. If you do have a lot of backspin, meaning that you do have at least 6 bars of backspin. You can go directly at green, just land it there and be done with it. If you don't have that, and you have another club such as a big dog here that doesn't have the backspin, but it does have the power, we want to do a rough bump out towards the green. The rough bump obviously is a bit more riskier, as if you misjudge, you might stay into the rough and stuff like that. But the same type of thought with the backspin on green should be from the rough, that we're playing for a safe eagle and just to be done with it. So try to avoid thinking that this is going to be an albatross. Play the ball to green and get yourself the eagle. If you have the possibility to play with something that is better than a power 3 ball, such as a power 4 ball or a power 5 ball, then use that, because that will minimize the need of overpower on the second shot, and especially if you do have a crosswind or a headwind, that will be very helpful. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this playthrough for Rookie Division of the Tranquil Gardens 18-hole Cup. If you do like the video, make sure to hit the thumbs up, and I would like you to wish you the best of luck in your Golf Clash game.